Operation Epic Fury lasted 38 days. In that time, American forces fired more than 1,000 Tomahawk cruise missiles, according to CSIS. That represented roughly a third of America's entire pre-war Tomahawk inventory, the equivalent of more than 11 years of average annual procurement. Gone in 6 weeks. But Tomahawks weren't the most alarming part of the story. At peak consumption, coalition Patriot batteries were firing an estimated 225 interceptors per day. The Lockheed Martin assembly plant in Camden, Arkansas, was producing 1.7 per day. Think about that for a second. 225 consumed, 1.7 built. Every single day. So how can the world's most powerful military run into a missile problem? The answer is not hidden in the defense budget. It's hidden inside the factories trying to replace what the war consumed. You can fund a missile in a year. You cannot replace it in a week. America's not running out of missiles because it lacks money. It's running out because it can't replace what it fires fast enough. This is Conflict Vector, where we uncover what today's wars are teaching tomorrow's militaries. The United States defense budget for fiscal year 2027 exceeded $1.5 trillion. That number buys aircraft carriers, stealth fighters, satellites, and the most advanced military hardware any nation has ever assembled. It does not buy time. That is the hidden cost of modern war, not the dollars that leave the treasury, but the months that vanish between a missile launched and a missile replaced. Every time an interceptor leaves a launcher, what disappears is not just a weapon. It's the production time embedded inside. The seeker that took months to manufacture. The motor that required 30 months to cure. The testing, the certification, the logistics chain that placed it all on the rail. For decades, American war planning assumed conflicts would be short, adversaries quickly outmatched, and the industrial base allowed to pace itself accordingly. Operation Epic Fury exposed the cost of that assumption. When Operation Epic Fury ended, the question facing the Pentagon was not whether America could pay for more missiles. It was whether anyone could manufacture them fast enough to matter. If America has the money, why can't it simply build more? The answer begins with an interceptor body waiting on an assembly floor in Camden, Arkansas. It is complete in almost every way: airframe, fins, warhead, electronic connections. One component is missing, the part that transforms it from an expensive shell into a weapon, the active Ka-band radar seeker. Without it, the Patriot can't find its target. Without it, the missile is simply a tube with potential. Boeing manufactures that seeker at one facility in Huntsville, Alabama. One address, one production line. Every PAC-3 MSE interceptor in the American inventory, every Allied system, every emergency order placed since the Ukraine transfer began. All of it is dependent on the output of a single building. In 2025, that facility delivered approximately 650 to 700 seekers for the full year. That is the ceiling for the entire American Patriot program, regardless of how fast Lockheed can assemble everything else. The Pentagon recognized it. In April 2026, it signed a framework to triple seeker output, a formal acknowledgement written into a procurement contract, that a single point of failure had become a national security liability. But even tripling the seeker wouldn't solve the longest delay in the chain. Every Patriot interceptor also requires a solid rocket motor. That motor takes 30 months to produce, not because of bureaucracy, because of chemistry. Solid rocket propellant is cast into a casing and then left to cure. It has to harden slowly enough to burn predictably. Rush the process, and the propellant can crack. Shorten the window, and the motor can fail when the missile needs it most. The reaction happens at its own pace. A contract can buy more equipment. It cannot negotiate with chemistry. An emergency order signed in April 2026 produces motors in mid-2028. Between 2000 and 2015, U.S. solid rocket motor suppliers consolidated from 6 companies to 2. Today, L3 Harris, through Aerojet Rocketdyne, manufactures the motor for every PAC-3 MSE. 2 new propulsion facilities broke ground in June 2026. Neither is operational yet. If production is this slow, what happens during a prolonged war? Operation Epic Fury answered that question. At 225 Patriot interceptors consumed per day, a factory producing 1.7 is mathematically irrelevant. Even running every shift at maximum capacity, the assembly line cannot approach the pace at which a sustained air defense campaign depletes the inventory. The Tomahawk numbers tell the same story at a different scale. The U.S. averaged approximately 86 Tomahawks per year in procurement over the previous decade. In 6 weeks, the campaign consumed the equivalent of 11 years of that average. The same pressure extended to the Navy's high-end interceptors. Weapons such as the SM-6 are also produced in limited annual batches, which means a sustained maritime defense campaign can consume years of planned output far faster than industry can restore it. 3 different missile families. 3 different missions. The same industrial equation. Weapons disappear in hours. They return in years. But there is something worse. When the missiles started flying, the magazine was already partially empty. Transfers to Ukraine over the previous 2 years, Patriot interceptors, THAAD rounds, long-range strike weapons, had drawn precision weapon reserves down to roughly 25% of desired levels before the first Tomahawk launched against Iran. The Navy had requested just 57 Tomahawks in its fiscal year 2026 procurement budget, submitted months before the campaign began. 57 missiles, fewer than the full loadout of a single destroyer. THAAD reserves were also heavily depleted. The war burned through roughly 40% of what remained in the first 16 days. America didn't begin Operation Epic Fury with a full magazine and then empty it. It entered the war already waiting for replacements its factory couldn't yet deliver. If America is burning through missiles this fast, what are its rivals seeing? CSIS described it with a specific phrase, window of vulnerability. Published in May 2026, the analysis concluded that inventories would need several years to return to pre-war levels, and additional years beyond that to reach what war planners actually require. That window isn't invisible. Production rates are public record. Delivery schedules appear in procurement filings. Delayed Allied orders reveal where inventories are under pressure. A strategic competitor that understands logistics can calculate how long the rebuilding will take and what American response capability looks like during that recovery window. The administration paused arms deliveries to Taiwan, specifically because of munitions constraints. Acting Navy Secretary Hung Zhao told the Senate directly, "Right now we are doing a pause in order to make sure we have the munitions we need for Epic Fury." That statement revealed something significant, not just that stockpiles were stressed, but that the stress was severe enough to affect Allied commitments in the Indo-Pacific. Every month that gap remains open is a month in which the strategic calculation in the Western Pacific looks different than it did before the campaign started. The missile shortage is not a classified problem. It is a measurable one, and measurements have consequences. Can America rebuild its arsenal before the next crisis begins? The question now isn't whether America can rebuild. It's whether it can rebuild before the next crisis begins. The Pentagon did not wait. It began attacking every part of the bottleneck at once. In April 2026, it signed a framework to triple PAC-3 MSE seeker production. THAAD output is being scaled toward 400 interceptors annually. Tomahawk capacity is being pushed toward 1,000 per year. New propulsion facilities broke ground in June 2026. On paper, it looked like a surge. On the factory floor, it's a race against the calendar. Directed energy systems, lasers that fire for the cost of electricity, are being accelerated specifically to reduce dependence on expensive precision interceptors. The Pentagon is also pursuing lower-cost interceptors and layered counter-drone systems, so a cheap incoming weapon does not always require a multi-million-dollar missile to destroy it. The goal isn't simply to build more Patriots. It's to reserve them for the threats that only a Patriot can stop. Every drone intercepted by a laser preserves a Patriot round for the threat that actually demands one. The production lines are moving. The interceptors funded in April 2026 will probably not reach inventory until mid-2028. The factories built in June 2026 won't produce motors for years. The Patriot interceptor fired in the opening days of Operation Epic Fury left the launcher in seconds. If ordered for replacement that same day, it may not return to an American launcher until 2028. Thousands of others are waiting in the same chain, each one representing production time already spent, chemistry already committed, a clock already running. America is spending manufacturing time faster than its industrial base can generate it. That's not a problem money solves alone. For generations, American military advantage was measured in technology. Better aircraft, more precise missiles, systems no adversary could match. Operation Epic Fury revealed a different competition. America's next strategic challenge is not simply building a better missile. It's winning the race to reload. The defining advantage of the next generation of warfare may not be superior technology. It may be superior production, a system built fast enough, deep enough, and resilient enough to replace what combat consumes before the next crisis begins. Because in modern war, the country that fires the most advanced missiles may win the battle. The country that reloads first wins the war.